Thank you so much, Martin. If you could pass it back to me.
You bet. And don't forget to hit the mute button once you get started so that you don't have any interruptions. So.
Gotcha.
Okay. Pass over that roll to you here. And then to see it in action in real time. You're so young. There are so few fields like politics that you can look at and say, oh, that could be me one day, you know. There you go.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and mute this now.
Okay.
Did everyone hear what I had just said?
I'm hearing you now.
I'm hearing you now.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, great. I'm going to put everyone back on mute so I can continue. Did no one hear the beginning with the housekeeping and the contacts?
I did not hear that.
No,
Okay.
Corin, this is Marty. I didn't hear it either. I don't know if that's because of
No,
yeah.
my phone was
trying...
not on mute. Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, I'm here now. So welcome to the fiscal year 2018 LAP application. Please make sure that your phones are on silent. If you do not already have your fiscal year 2018 LAP guidelines, you can also print them out or review them from the calendar invitation. They were submitted with an attachment. If all else fails, they are in Zoom grants, and I will also be sending them out for distribution after. Please note the contacts of the individuals who are going to be participating in the administration of this grant. Myself, Corin Frankfurt, I'm the Deputy Director of Cultural Affairs for the county. Bill LaRosa has retired as of 9/1, so I will be running point on this program. And also Joe Wax, who is the program coordinator. Again, since we are recording this and we will be sharing this, please put your phones on silent, hold your questions, and we will move through this as quickly as possible. I know we're all very busy, So what is LAP? LAP stands for the Local Arts Program. The funding is made available by the New Jersey Department of State via the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. The funds are granted to the Hudson County Department of Cultural Affairs, Heritage, and Tourism, and then we redistribute those funds via this grant through 3 programs: the General Operating Support, Program Support, and Technical Assistance Support. This grant is adjudicated by individuals who are your peers within the fields of the arts, individuals who administer their own arts programs, who understand the unique nature of what we do as arts professionals. So just to reinforce, the Department of Cultural Affairs does not adjudicate these grants. We guide you through the process based on our experience and review of the transcripts from past peer panels that have evaluated grant applications. And we are experts in this field, but again, it is not my decision, Joe's decision, or any member of Cultural Affairs or Hudson County as to who receives these funds. So the goals of the Local Arts Program is to award competitive matching grants to organizations based on merit and financial need. We focus on organizations that show their commitment to the arts in the county by producing arts programs and services of high artistic quality and professionalism. We expect responsible administration, as these are funds that come from public money or go taxpayer dollars. And we look to promote those with proven successes of high-quality program that adds to the cultural breadth and wealth of the individual constituency. We want our programming to be quality, obviously. We want it to be of professional quality. And we want to promote accessible quality programming. So that means that we are inclusive of those with differing socioeconomic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, in addition to those who have a disability. Again, I would like to remind you that we will be having a Disability ADA Plan webinar next week on the 13th, and I hope that you all join me for that too. So the priority for funding. Obviously, we want to outreach to underserved communities. By underserved, we mean senior citizens, physically challenged individuals, developmentally challenged individuals, culturally diverse and economically disadvantaged individuals. We want a wide focus, and we want to make sure that your marketing strategies and the manner in which you promote your programming is not just accessible for those who are doing the performing itself, but also for those who attend and patronize your services, the employees of your organizations, things of that nature. We want to support all of the arts in all municipalities, northern and western municipalities. We need to note that we are not just in Jersey City, and we are not just in Hoboken, which have typically gotten a lot of the attention, but we want to make sure that all 12 of Hudson County's great municipalities are represented to the best of our ability, and we seek to expand in that way to make Hudson County a unique destination. We need to get Hudson County into a broader sphere of arts, dance, arts. We want to be a cultural leader, changes in identity. We want to be of note and be a force that draws people not just from the western part of the state, but also attracts people from outside of New Jersey, New York City, and so on. And we also need to make sure that, again, we're inclusive and culturally sensitive. Some of the priorities in terms of programming may also be, and this is just a note and is not in the guidelines, but something to think about. If, for instance, you are an arts organization that promotes opera and you do a program that has been controversial in other spheres like Madame Butterfly, are you considering the ramifications of the new disputes among Yellowface and things of that nature? So we would need to make sure that our programming also does not alienate any members of the community as well. So some notes. Like I mentioned before, there will be a free ADA webinar next week, September 13th, 2017 at 6 p.m. The agenda for this is we will be discussing the eligibility, the questions on the grants, required documents, and the types of grants. So the questions itself we'll go over when our friends at Zoom Grants take over, because that's when you'll see them, and the required documents as well, and the type. But we will be going through the different types of grants with respect to the rules. So just take note of this. So the Hudson County Fiscal Year 2018 LAP eligibility. An organization that meets the following criteria may apply if it is based in Hudson County, obviously, serves residents of Hudson County, has been in existence for a year or more as of January 1st, 2017, has been incorporated as a tax-exempt 501c3 or C4 as approved and certified by the IRS, again at least for a year as of January 1st, 2017, is an unincorporated group, now take note of the asterisk, which has demonstrated rigorous governance and sound financial oversight, such as hospitals, libraries, schools, community organizations, social service agencies, and so forth. Organizations like a government organization, a municipality that re-grants funds. We do have some grantees that have applied for program support and they have received it. Obviously, those types of organizations will go forward and will understand why they are no longer or not eligible for any support in this regard. And we also want an organization that meets the criteria of existing primarily as an arts organization and sponsors arts programming, obviously, and is able to meet the matching requirements. The multiple application eligibility for non-arts organizations, these groups may only apply in program support, as stated before. And arts-only organizations can apply for two forms, so either PS and TA, GOS and TA, but never PS and GOS. Again, PS stands for program support, TA stands for technical assistance, GOS stands for general operating support. And obviously, no organization can apply in all three categories. Now note, schools at any level, public or private, may not apply for LAP funding for GOS scholarships, tuition, school supplies, residencies, camps, humanities, lecture series, or any curricular or extracurricular activity. And schools are encouraged to contact the New Jersey State Council of the Arts for identifying grant opportunities directly. So that we don't cover that at all, so obviously you'd have to speak to the New Jersey State Arts Council, and if that is a consideration that you have, please reach out to me individually and I will help you. So let's go through some of the types of grants that we have. General operating support, the fiscal year 2018 requirements. The maximum request for a general operating support grant is $12,000. Arts-only organizations are eligible with proven multi-county impact. At least one full-time staff administrator is required. You have to have proven your fundraising ability. That includes individual fundraising, grants, successful grant writing, and a development of an in-kind volunteer base, for instance. And you have to have an active board of directors and trustees. GOS applicants must offer year-round programming, must submit a schedule of those board meetings and a letter of unaffiliated professional in the same discipline attesting to the professionalism of the organization. You must compensate your artists.
Thank you.
You must match at a 1-to-1 of the grant with at least 25% in cash.
Or in kind.
Would you please put your phone on mute so I can finish the section? So with at least 25% in cash, which means 75% of the match can be in in-kind services. But again, you need at least 25% in cash. That's revenue from ticket sales. That is grant writing. That is not a grant that you receive from the county or the state, or individual contributions. You must submit a copy of your bylaws, fully ratified. You must first discuss your intention to apply for a GOS with the Cultural Affairs Division with me, please. And that's only for first-time GOS applicants. And you must not rely on membership dues or fees in excess of 25% of your operating budget. Okay, so that's the GOS application. For the program support requirement, the maximum. Please hold your questions until the end of the section. For the program support section of the application, if you are applying for program support, maximum request is $7,000, and arts-only and non-arts organizations are eligible. Agencies that sponsor arts programs as part of a broader range of community outreach activities such as schools, social service agencies, chambers of commerce, community development agencies, and libraries can apply in this category. So for instance, we have had municipalities apply for LAP grants successfully within this category to sponsor programming like movies in the park. So if you are interested in funding a specific program, this would be the type of grant for you. So we have a priority consideration as well, in addition to priorities for funding criteria enumerated above. The Cultural Affairs Division encourages schools and non-arts to use this program, and we would love to collaborate with the local professional arts community to bring the work of Hudson County and New Jersey artists and performers to the general public. So that's the priority consideration. We're hoping that grows within this category. So program support applicants. They may use their funds for programmatic costs. Programmatic costs are space rentals, advertising, artist fees, props, and etc. of presenting a specific arts program, arts exhibits, or series of related arts programs. Examples of programs include multidisciplinary performing arts series, cultural tourism-themed arts festivals, concert series, art or photography exhibits, or outreach services to the arts constituency. Marketing materials that promote an event, a series of events, or an arts organization are also allowable expenses. You may, so as stated in number 2, you can use it for marketing materials. You may apply for up to 50% of your PS eligible program. Again, this is not general operating support, not administrative staff, nothing of that nature. But it is the program itself.
Right.
Okay. So you must be able to match the LAP grant at a 1-to-1 ratio, and this includes the in-kind contributions for matching as well. So, for instance, a special project's expenses total $6,000. So if the applicant requests $3,000, it would be required to match it with $3,000. Program support applicants may match the grant amount with cash or with the total in-kind dollar amount of those materials and services, including space rentals, that are crucial to presenting and planning of the special project. So, here's some notes on in-kind contributions. In-kind contributions, and this gets very tricky for a lot of the applicants in terms of defining it, refers to goods or services that you would otherwise have to pay for. So someone who provides accounting service who is an accountant is an in-kind service. A rent-free space that's not a garage or a basement of someone's home is an in-kind service. Donated professional quality printed posters are in-kind goods. A professional musician who makes a living performing, donating part or all of their service is an in-kind service. A volunteer handing out programs is not an in-kind service.
Right.
Student dancers participating in a recital of a dance school is not an in-kind service.
Okay.
You know, your nephew who got an A in algebra, you know, is not, doing your tax returns is not an in-kind service. So something, okay, so something like that. But unfortunately, those things do not qualify. But you should certainly boast your volunteer base and how talented they are. So moving on. Technical assistance, fiscal year 2018 requirements. Your max request is $4,000. Arts-only organizations that demonstrate a clear need for assistance in learning, nonprofit, administrative development. Now, I would just like to make a personal note. I'm going to remind everyone that I am not going to be adjudicating this grant, although I will be administering the peer panel. Some folks have expressed an interest in getting support for ADA compliance or building out ADA accessibility. I love this idea, and I'm completely in favor of this, but please know that there's little precedent for this, and I would love to talk this through with you more. I do encourage you to go out and make sure that you can find a consultant. And remember that you're required to have a letter of intention for this as well. So if you request anything with respect to building out your accessibility consultant to train your staff as to how to be better compliant with the ADA, and just make sure that that person has already been paid for doing this before. Because I wouldn't want you to get denied for something that is so valuable for something so minimal as this. This is not a well-built-out field as of yet, but I do love the intention, and I would love to flesh this out with you if that is what you would like to do. So this has been something that more than one individual has asked me about. I would just like to make that note and also remind you that I am not adjudicating this grant. So TA applicant may use funds for payment for trainings given to staff provided by qualified professionals or organizations, including strategic planning, grant writing, fundraising, and board development, and also ADA stuff, as I just stated before. Artistic consultancies and guest artist programs are not eligible, and those include people who tell you how to do lighting, sound, costume design, choreography, etc. Any technical assistance application that does not include a consultant's letter of intent will be automatically rejected. Consultant travel mileage is limited to the current state of New Jersey rate of reimbursement, the GOS reimbursement rate. Air travel and hotel costs are not eligible expense under this grant. Technical assistance proposals that request the services of current and past employees, past and present board members, relatives, friends, or associates, regardless of their professional consultancy expertise, will not be considered. Please mute your phones if they're not already muted. Thank you. So if you look at this slide, 1 is yes, 2 is unabashedly no, and you will automatically be rejected. Technical assistance grants do not require a match. The applicant's narrative must explain how the training will be conducted, items to consider and address, whether the training will be held at a reputable nonprofit support center, or will a consultant be brought in. 2, the TA applicant's narrative must clearly state what the training goals are and how they will be achieved. The dates these services will begin and end, and how long the session will last. If bringing in a consultant, the TA applicant must submit the following with its application. the professional qualifications of the consultant. Like I said, they need to have been paid for this before. References, they need to know someone who knows that they have been paid for this before, who speaks well of them. A letter of intent or scope of services, including the breakdown of cost of services. If using an acknowledged and reputable training center, the TA applicant must provide a description of the courses or seminars offered. An evaluation of the training and/or consultancy must be provided in a final report at the end of the grant term, and all expenses that are reimbursable through this grant must be backed up with actual receipts. So that's a few things to consider there. So ineligible projects and expenses in all categories, LAP grants may not be used for administrative salaries, hospitality or food, no sandwiches, I'm sorry, airline and hotel expenses, capital improvements, no new stairs, stage, build out, things of that nature. Equipment purchases, you can't buy a spotlight with it, things like that. You can't buy brushes for your artists, I'm sorry. Curricular or extracurricular activities for a school, again, you should speak to the New Jersey State Council of the Arts for anything related to that. Field trips, programming outside of Hudson County. If you have multi-regional impact, with the exception of GOS, of course, because that's part of their requirements for BS and TA, no. If you have multi-regional impact, you may want to speak to the NJSCA as well. Collateral for a loan, you can't use it as a bargaining chip to get a loan. That should be pretty obvious. Acquisition of arts or antiques, we can't purchase art for your permanent collection or your permanent sets. Restoration of statuary or historic items, there are different grants from the state for that. If you need a grant for that, you should apply to the state. Parades, fashion shows, religious feasts or plays, food festivals, antique shows, etc. Fundraising activities or related fundraising costs, you can't use this money to reinvest in getting more money. And no cash prizes, trophy scholarships, or tuition. You can't have a lottery and give our grant money away. And you obviously cannot use it for personal gain in any matter. Equipment like phones, fax, DVD players, things like that are obviously also ineligible expenses. Okay, so the judgment of the grants. The staff evaluates the proposals and checks for eligibility. So when you submit your grant application through Zoom Grants, they will get back to us, and we will read through them and make sure that you have your IRS letters. We will make sure that all of the necessary items are sent over to us. We will cross-check them. We will look at your budget. We will check your numbers. We will read everything with a fine-tooth comb, and we will spotlight anything that needs to be spotlighted. If there is a problem that's consistent throughout all of the grant applications, we'll make note of that for trends so that you guys are judged fairly. And also, if there's something that's glaringly obvious, like you ask for money that you don't need because you've put a lot of expenses into your budget and you have matched it yourself, and if you're asking for money that you do not need, we will also point that out to them. And it won't necessarily result in you being denied funding, but that may give them pause with how much funding they offer you. So that's just something to be mindful of. And so after that, the ADA panel will evaluate the quality of your ADA plans for your PS and GOS applications. Every single PS and GOS application is required to have an ADA plan. If you do not have one, you will be marked down for an incomplete application, or if it's coinciding with anything else that's missing and required, you may have your application thrown out altogether. After the ADA panel reviews your ADA plan, the LAP peer panel will score and evaluate your application against the evaluation criteria, which is on page 8, conveniently, of your fiscal year 2018 guidelines. We do not have a formula for how much people will receive as of yet. It depends on how much money is given out by our panel, and again, we don't adjudicate this. So there have been instances in which the peer panel gave everyone a very large award, and we've had to scale it down so that everyone could be funded. So please be mindful of that, and if you have a question regarding that, hopefully that will suffice and give you an answer. So pointers for successful applications. Read the guidelines carefully. Know that LAP funding must not be the applicant's sole source of funding, and a meritorious proposal will indicate that. I used the word meritorious for Bill LaRosa, who loved that word. You have to familiarize yourself with our evaluation criteria, again, page 8. Understand our funding priorities. You have to indicate how, with intention, you will be marketing our programming and how we are going to be promoting the arts for all of Hudson County to all communities of all economic backgrounds and all cultural backgrounds and all levels of, accessibility to the constituency, and it has to be clearly written. You have to write concisely, proper syntax, grammar, spelling. It has to make sense. Be mindful of your formality as well. I had an application in the past that said something like, if it rained, we would just throw out wooden boards, and it was very informal, and the peer panel was very much offended by it. So be very careful with the way that you phrase things. So be formal, but clear. And please, we are going to be giving you a lot of characters, but you don't have to necessarily use all of them. If you can make your point in fewer words, all the better. Get the math right on your budget, including the valuation of in-kind services or goods. If you say that someone who provided you free accounting, their services were worth $4,000, but all they did was count the money and make the bank deposit, we're going to notice that. So be realistic in your accounting and things of that nature. And please do feel free to reach out to either Joe or myself, and we can provide some guidance for you. Consider your metrics of measuring and documenting geographic impact and how you're serving Hudson communities. Since it is a priority to serve all backgrounds and socioeconomic and so on, you have to say how you are going to prove that you've done that. Are you going to have people fill out short surveys afterwards? Are you going to do a customer satisfaction survey? Anything of that nature. You have to quantify how you are impacting the community for the good and how you're being inclusive. How many schools have you reached out to in terms of inviting persons with disabilities to participate in your programming? Things of that nature. And then make sure that you clearly explain it within your application. So just a few odds and ends too. There is a grievance procedure outlined on page 10 if you feel that you have been unfairly scored. It's not allowed if any of your expenses were ineligible expenses. Your grievance will be automatically thrown out if that's the case. We may engage in site visits to make sure the programming taking place is indeed what you have applied to get funding for, and to make sure that your ADA plans are followed. ADA plans, again, are required for applications for PS and GOS. Please join the webinar on the 13th next week. And all applications will be automatically rejected, sorry. So there also is an accessibility grievance procedure for programs funded by the county and state due to a barrier to access. In such cases, we will investigate any and all complaints. So if you say that you have assistive listening devices on your advertisement, and someone attends your programming and you do not have it, you did not make arrangements for them, we will investigate that, and it will be sent to the Hudson County Council for review. So please take note of that. So please be honest in your applications, which should go without saying. The awards are announced by letter via certified mail. Please make sure that you have a valid address. All checks and mail will be sent to the address on your W-9. We've had several instances in which people were unable to get paid for several months due to this problem. They didn't receive their award letters. They didn't receive their contracts, things of that nature. This is imperative. Any business that does not have a valid mailing address is not perceived by the county as being a well-run business, and we do take note of it. So please make sure that if we are reaching out to you to respond to you, that you're actually getting it at a place that can receive that mail. And please review your payment and final report details on page 11 of your guidelines. This will be relevant to you if your funding is approved. So at this time, I would like to turn it back over to Martin, unless anyone has any specific questions.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On the for the first type of grant, the GOS,
Yes.
Talks about artist compensation. With us, we usually do we often do, not always, like 50-50 ticket sales, and for visual arts, the artists get a percent, the largest percent of their sale. Does that count?
That is a compensation method, and it does count. The manner in which the peer panel perceives that is not in my control. However, if you do have a shared profit situation with your GOS grant, I would encourage you strongly to make sure that you explain the process of coming to that decision as concisely as possible and how you built out that structure, and also why it's fair.
Got it. Second question, similarly for the program grant, it says administrative costs are not covered. But what about salaries of other people in the organization who are not technically administrative, like the artistic director and that sort of thing, who who work on the program for the grant period and get a percent of their salary is attributed to the time they work on it? Is that considered administrative cost?
Administrative costs. Well, here's the thing: if there is an administrative cost that is part of the programmatic cost, like if you can value the programmatic cost, because that's what that is. Because of advertising, how much time are they spending on advertising? How much time are they spending on, the specific items that are covered within programmatic or marketing?
Right.
Since program support does not cover the cost of running your organization, only goes towards this actual thing, you need to figure out what you're spending there and put it in and justify it. Does that make sense?
So if the administrative cost is directly related to the program covered by the grant, then that is okay, as obviously as long as it's verified in some fashion.
So
okay.
It says programmatic cost. So if you were to refer specifically to the guidelines, programmatic costs, the ones that we list within the guidelines, are space rentals, advertising, artist fees, and et cetera. Presenting a specific arts program like art exhibits or so on. So that's programmatic costs, and that goes into the actual production of the programming. And then there's marketing materials. So the production of the marketing materials like flyers, online advertising, newspaper advertising, things of that nature, that's marketing materials. So anything, it has to fall within those two categories. I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm going to tell you that it probably won't be looked at well because it doesn't fall neatly into these categories. For any grant, whenever you're talking about your expenses, you always want whatever you're spending your money on to fall neatly within the categories that are outlined within the actual guidelines. Does that make sense?
I got it. That's cool.
It might be better to exclude it, but make sure that it's tidy, as it were.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Any further questions? Okay, with that, I would love to give Martin control. Thank you for coming back, Martin.
You bet. Hi, everybody. My name is Martin Greenlee. I'm with Zoom Grants, and I'm here to walk you through how to use Zoom Grants, how to apply for the LAP program. I'm sure you folks, if you haven't already, have been provided this unique link to this specific application. And once you open that link, you are going to see to create your new Zoom Grants account. Now, some of you may have applied last year. I'm not sure. If you did and already have a Zoom Grants account, you'll want to do that in the upper right-hand corner here using your existing Zoom Grants login. Now, if you forgot your password since last year or from another account, go ahead and click that Forgot Password, and our system will email you your password for you. Once you log in, you can update your password and things like that. So feel free to do that. But for all new users, if you don't have a Zoom Grants account, you'll need to fill out this new Zoom Grants account section here and type in your email. So I did a fictitious one here, and I put in my password and my name, and art is school. So everybody got my joke there. Okay, anyways. And go ahead and just, once you create that new account, it's going to say you've successfully created your new account and you've logged in, and we've got your open programs here available. So you'll go ahead and click the apply button. That allows you to apply for the program. And the same applies if you're an existing user and use your existing account. Once you log in, that's going to allow you to apply for this program. Up here at the top is your name. We've got some helpful resources for you, or the help button here. If you do need some assistance, go ahead and click on this help button. We've got a variety of different features here that can walk you through how to use Zoom Grants, some tips. If you're wondering about spell checking or things like that, feel free to read all that information there. We have a video, a slideshow, a tip sheet. We have what's called Zoom Grants University as well, where you can have some additional content information about how to use our system. And then if you have any questions related to the content or the program, that you can click on this Contact Admin button, and that will generate an email, or you can copy that. It'll generate an email to the staff there at Hudson County. If you're having technical issues with Zoom Grants, feel free to contact this button here. That'll generate an email to questions@zoomgrants.com. Again, that technical assistance email address is questions@zoomgrants.com. And those folks at our support desk can help you with any of your questions related to the technology, not the program itself. All right, I'm going to go and get this out of our way. Here is, I'm going to point you, and I'm going to talk about this refresh page button at some point, but just keep in mind that this refresh page button is here. You'll want to use this refresh page button rather than the browser refresh button up here, the reload page up here. So keep in mind, use the refresh page button. If you accidentally hit the reload page, it might generate an additional application in your system. Just keep in mind, it's okay if you accidentally have another application. We can archive it and get it out of the way if you'd like. But you'll want to use this refresh page button for a few things. I'll talk through that a little bit later. So here's our Hudson County Cultural Affairs, Heritage, and Tourism. Here's their program. We've got some information here under the description tab. You can click that. We'll show it again. You click it and get rid of it. We've got requirements here. We've got your restrictions here. A lot of information there for you. And then we also have the information and guidelines section where you can download a PDF of the information and guidelines. There's also an ADA chart as well that's in the document format. You can download that as well.
I'd just like to note that I will be doing, just another reminder, that I will be doing an ADA webinar to go through those requirements.
Fantastic. Yeah, tomorrow, I believe. Or, no, next week.
Next week, on the 13th at 6 p.m.
That's right. Okay, so you'll notice that Submit Now button, the Print Preview button. At any time, you can click the Print Preview button and see what it looks like. You can PDF it, print it, do whatever you want. But this Submit button, obviously, we're not going to let you submit this application at this point because you have not completed the program. So you'll need to answer all the available questions and upload any documents that are required in the system in order to successfully submit that. So go ahead and type in your title of your project And go ahead and type in your title. Now, when I leave this field, you're going to see a flash of blue that says saving. And Zoom Grants automatically saved that answer. So as you're working through Zoom Grants, you don't have to worry about clicking save. You don't need to, look for that save button. You can, at this point, if I were to shut my computer down and log back in, and a few minutes later, this information would have been saved. So you do not have to worry about saving the information. If for some reason your internet connection is slow or what, and the saving screen is in this kind of cycling here and the save part, you can double click your mouse and you can remove that and try again with a better internet connection. So go ahead and type in your title, put in your amount that you're requesting, complete the additional information here, maybe your phone number, and then your organization, legal name, we're here, so on and so forth. And as you're working through this, the system will automatically save those answers. And then down below is a section called collaborators. Collaborators are folks that you invite into your application where they can help you answer some of those questions. Maybe it's an additional staff member or somebody that can help answer some of those hard questions, whatever it is. You would need to put their email address in here and check this box for editing access and invite them into the application. Now keep in mind, once they are invited, they can create their own password, and once they log in, they can not submit, archive, or delete this application. The only thing that those folks can do is edit the questions, and multiple people can be in an application at any given time. There's no worry about that. Just keep in mind that if you and another person or a collaborator is working on the same answer at the same time, there's possibility for some overwrite there. So keep in mind, if you're both working on the same answer at the same time, you want to try to coordinate and try not to be in the same answer at the same time, because whoever leaves that field last is going to win, and their answer is going to save. So just maybe have a little coordination of who's answering what questions. That would be helpful. Down below is some additional contacts if you'd like to include any board members or any additional people that you want them to be notified on all the emails, the notifications that go out from Hudson County regarding this application. You can put their email address, and you'll want to separate those multiple email addresses by a comma, no spaces. Go ahead and put those email addresses in there if you'd like to include some additional people to be notified. Zoom Grants uses a tab system, so we started off here with the organizational profile. That's a glorified cover sheet, if you will. Next is the pre-application tab, and in here is where you're going to find some instructions. Here's that for you, and you can get that out of your way. But here you'll need to answer those questions, and as I enter those questions, you're going to see that depending upon my answers, some questions appear and disappear. So this question number 1 is a branching question. So keep in mind, if I change my answer here, question 2 goes away, question 3 presents itself. So same thing goes with number 4 as well. So so keep in mind the number sequentially will change based on your answer here to this first question in the pre-application tab. Once you've answered that, you can move on to the next tab, which is the Application Questions tab, and answer those questions there. Move yourself through the application. Answer types like this, which are a paragraph answer type, this one's going to accommodate up to 1,000 characters. That's approximately 1/3 of 1 page of text. You can copy and paste into these boxes, but keep in mind, if the system is having trouble saving that information, it's because of a character that for some reason, if you went into your Word document or you went onto your website and you copied some text and you pasted in this box, some text has some hidden characters behind the scenes that when you go to copy and paste the text, our system's not recognizing that text. Even though it's not presented, it might be the letter A, and for some reason that letter A is a unique letter A, and it has some other characters behind it. If for some reason you're having trouble with it saving, maybe the best option is to take the copied text, put it into the notepad feature on your computer, strip it of all of its, qualities, whether it's as bold, italics, and all that other stuff, and then copy it from there and paste it into this box. The other option you have is to manually type it. This does accommodate copying and pasting, but just keep in mind, if for some reason it's not saving, it's because there's some crazy character that you don't know that's there, that's attached to that pasting feature. So just continue to work through those answers. You'll see those character counters there, those section titles there, work through all those questions. Do you need to talk about any of these questions, Corin?
Yes, I would like to speak about it just in brief. Now, obviously, This is a very, very long webinar, so I don't want to go through them individually, but I encourage you to read through the entire application, print it out if you would like, do a preview as Martin already taught us, and then print out the questions so that you are familiar with these questions, and then reach out to me if you don't understand them. Obviously, I've already reinforced the need to write concisely, but be mindful of the manner in which you answer them and think about the requirements in depth. And I think that's really all. I don't think that we really have time to go through them one by one, but that's basically my pointer on that. And
Sure.
Make sure that you write it in Word so you have a word count. And then make sure that you paste it from a software that is more friendly with Zoom grants, like WordPad or something like that, a Notepad. Is that correct, Martin?
That's correct. Yeah, exactly. And just want to clarify that Zoom Grants uses a character counter, not a word counter. So if you're using Microsoft Word, you can check how many characters that does, because it does count all the spaces, every character that's presented. So
great.
So just keep in mind.
Okay.
The next tab is the budget tab. This is where you'll put in that budget narrative there. There is some instructions here for you to look at. So be sure to click those yellow boxes so that information can be presented for you.
Right.
There's some information there. Go ahead.
I would like to talk about the budget tab. Now, the budget narrative is meant to explain the budget line items to give them some context. So if we go over to the budget, can you just go over to the budget line items real quickly?
Absolutely, yeah.
So there is one table for every single category of grant, and you have to fill out a table for every category to which you are applying. As you can see, this is just numerical values, but it provides no insight. So the budget narrative is meant to explain those numbers in more detail. So you shouldn't just copy and paste whatever version of a table you're capable of copying and pasting into the budget narrative, but rather you should explain what office supplies do you need, what one-time expenses for performance in the space are you going to need? Are you going to rent a stage? Are you going to rent out a gallery? Do you have overhead in any way outside of that? What are you printing? What kind of ADA compliant large typeface printing are you doing? So explain what you have in your table in the budget narrative. They should not be the same thing, and it will be scored against you if they are. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a great point, because the budget narrative is presented first in the tab. You're not required to go in this order. It sounds to me that the best option is then to fill out this budget line item section, pick the section in which you are applying for, or multiple sections if it's multiple, I'm not sure. There are those different sections here, those tables here, and filling this out, and then going back and then filling out that budget narrative so that you can explain what is filled out in the budget line items thing. And I'm sure that that's what you explained here.
Right.
So be sure to read the instructions, things like that. All right, the final part of your Zoom Grants application is the documents to be provided by the applicant tab here. So these are all of the documents that they are requesting. Here's your instructions. Again, be sure to click those so you can read those instructions before starting. But you'll notice a lot of the documents here are listed as required, and there's one here that is an optional ADA chart here, and that one requires a download template function. So you'll want to download that, fill it out, and then upload that back into the couple here,
Right.
GOS and TA, and yeah.
So Joe Wax, our faithful Joe Wax, has last year he put an exemption template. So if you're applying for TA and you're not applying for GOS, there are some categories where it's not required, but you are required to upload something. So this downloaded template of the 2018 exemption, you could just download that and upload that in its place, or just a blank document in its place, just so that you have no glitches, if that makes sense. And that's all I have to say about that as well.
And I'll clarify that too, just by saying that Zoom Grants requires you to at least upload one document. And so if you don't upload a document in this specific location here, our system is going to prevent you from submitting your application. It's going to tell you that you do not have a required document uploaded. So what Corin is referring to is if a particular document is required, but it's not required of you and your organization, you'll need to download this template and upload it in that place. Is that correct, Corin?
Correct.
Okay. So uploading documents is really straightforward. Just click the upload button, give it a title, and you can find it on your hard drive. Now notice the size limit is 4 megabytes each. What that means is that you can upload as many 4 megabyte documents within this request. But if your document does exceed that limit, you will be asked to either link it to a cloud storage account. You can bypass that 4 megabyte limit by using Dropbox, Google Drive, or whatever cloud storage account you're using, and put that publicly readable link here. Or you can upload, document 1 of 2 and document 2 of 2, each under 4 megabytes each. So, and then we accept all of these different document extensions here and upload that document in and close that button. Now, this is where you might want to use the refresh page button. Now, you'll notice that it says this list will be updated when the page is refreshed. So once I click that refresh page button, that document will show up and will appear. So that's what I wanted to point out with the refresh page button. And at that point, you can also track all your different activity here on the activity log. As you submit your application, you can also track your activity on the activity log as well. And finally, I just want to make sure that the archive this application button is not a save button. Archive this application basically takes it out of consideration to Hudson County. It removes it from their consideration, but you still have access to it from your My Account homepage. So when you go back to the My Account homepage, I'll just close and say that all of your applications start off as incomplete. As you submit them, they turn into a submitted application. If you've accidentally archived them, or if the deadline has already occurred and you did not submit your application, that incomplete application turns into an archived application. If you've been approved, it shows up over here, decline there. If you need to update your login and your passwords, you can do that through the Account Profile tab here. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, Corin.
Also, great. And if anyone has any questions, please chime in. I do have a few notes on the uploaded documents and the submissions of materials. Please note that we would prefer to have photographs of programming. We would prefer to have, and not, a pitch or a clip, advertising materials per se. So if you are a performance organization, it would be better if you provided us a minute or less clip of your performances, as opposed to online marketing materials, like a trailer for essentially for your materials as well. So please take note of that. Please be mindful of the length of time. We will not watch the entire programming during our panel meeting. We will not be doing that. If you do submit longer samples of your work, it is up to the panelists whether or not they watch it all. I cannot force them to do that. So just be mindful of that. So make sure that when you pick to select as a sample of your work is of the utmost quality. Now, Martin, from my understanding, at the end of this, when they submit the application in full, a certification page will be generated, and you will be required to submit that certification page with an original signature in blue ink, either via mail, postmark on or before Friday, September 29th, 2017, or hand-delivered to the Hudson County Office of Cultural Affairs on or before 5 p.m. on the same date, Friday, September 29th, 2017. Certifications that are hand-delivered or postmarked after the deadlines will not be accepted. Faxed copies will not be accepted, and there will be no exceptions. So if you can see there, the download template for the required certification page, you'll fill that out. If you want to just, would you be able to open it so they could take a look at it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So if you take a look at the certification page, you'll see that this is essentially your agreement. Now, at the beginning of this certification page, at the very top of it, where it says organization name, you have to write that there. There were some instances in which people only signed at the bottom of this document without writing down the organization name, and it forced the staff of the Cultural Affairs Division to have to go through and essentially forensically research who this person was. So for the sanity of all, please make sure that you write the organization name at the top of your certification page. And that's all I have to say about that one as well. So.
Cool. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or anything else you had on your agenda to cover?
That's basically all. I have a very beautiful last slide of my PowerPoint presentation if anyone would like to see it. But does anyone have any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Martin, I think you touched on this, but you said that the archive isn't a save button. Is there a save button, or just when you exit the thing it saves automatically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll reiterate that. So when you're working through the application, and let's say I make an answer here in this question number 1, what is my organization type? When I click that button, you'll see that flash of green. And I'm going to go ahead and type another answer here, and you're going to see that flash of green. That automatically saves my answer. I don't have to click save. There's no save button in Zoom Grants. So just want to. Some people and some of our other users some people think that archiving means save, and it's not a save button. Basically, that it takes it out of consideration, but you still have access to all the data that you put into it. So it just puts it away.
So you recommend, if I only fill out a portion of it at any given time, I would log out, and everything I put in would be saved.
Yeah. So if you're working on this application on the beach and a big wave comes up and hits you and crashes your computer, you'll be able to pick up right where you left off.
So I don't have to log out of it.
Right.
No.
The system will saves automatically, and you can pick up right where you left off, where your last save was. Yeah, where your last answer was. Yeah.
I have another question. I think it's more of a Corin question. Is there anything, any new questions or documents required? This seems just similar to last year's grant, which is not a criticism, but I'm wondering if there's anything new that we may need to be aware of.
No, we have not included any additional questions this year. I do recommend as a best practice that you review your application that you submitted last year. Everyone should print out and save their applications every year so that you can track the way that you have developed as an organization with respect to the quality of your grant writing. So the applications are the same. The application questions, rather, are the same. The budget line items have the same questions, except the only difference is that we have added more explanation. So, for instance, projected technical assistance expenses, and then we wrote i.e. if seeking funds for a consultant. We just added, more clarity with some additional explanation as to what each question in this line item means, because I think that the budget line items were a bit confusing last year, but they are essentially exactly the same. So no tricks up our sleeves.
No new line items.
Yes, no new line items, no surprises.
One last question, which is there a timeline in terms of when we can expect to receive the check, when we get notified of acceptance, and when the check would be forthcoming?
So we will be adjudicating these grants a few weeks after. Let me just pull up my calendar. So after the 29th is the last day that they are due, at the close of business day on the 29th of September. So in October, the first 2 weeks of October, we will do internal review. And then, let me just pull up the month view. So on October 18th, the ADA panel, the Wednesday, will be meeting to evaluate your ADA plans. Then on the 19th, I will package up all of those ADA plans and summarize the notes from the ADA panel. Then on October 20th, the LAP grant panel will convene and meet regarding the programming itself and the application verbiage itself. So after that happens, all of the notes will be assembled, and then it probably in November, mid-November, unless there are any surprises, we should be able to start getting those letters out and calculate the exact amounts of how much each individual organization will be awarded. So I would say November, second week of November to third week of November, we should start sending out those letters.
So by mid-November, we'll know if we got accepted.
Yes.
And when I know it's always a shooting match, but it was better last year than the year before. When will we can expect to receive the check and that kind of thing?
The checks are issued. We cannot remit payment for anything until 2018. That is when the fiscal year begins. This is a 2018 grant, so you will receive the checks in 2018. In order for anyone to receive payment for a LAP grant, they have to return both copies, signed in blue ink, of their grant contracts that have been sent over to them. They also would have to return a signed voucher and a numbered invoice promptly. The contract has to be fully enacted in order for any payments to be issued. Otherwise, the finance department will not issue payment. So provided that there is a prompt return of the contract, it's routed through the county to the individuals responsible for fully enacting your contract, and all of the documents are returned correctly filled out and signed with a numbered invoice. It shouldn't take more than 3 weeks for you to get paid from the date of all those things being returned. Now, the trick is to make sure you return everything. The trick is to make sure that everyone has a proper mailing address. And there were a few individuals who I hand-delivered things to because of things last year. We're trying to avoid that, and I have been encouraged by the administration not to provide those accommodations any longer. So it shouldn't take longer than 3 weeks to receive payment, provided that you provide everything appropriately.
I guess the question is, do we get the contracts by mid-November as well?
Depending on the law department, those are typically sent out in December. But again, we have to see what the budget will be looking like for fiscal year 2018 as well. Of course, the budget is dependent on the freeholder board as well, so there's a lot of moving parts there. But by mid-November, we should have a sense, and certainly the status of the budget will have a sense by then as well.
Understood. I know I don't mean to press the point, but do you think that if all things being equal and all the paperwork is done on time and properly, do you think the checks will probably be forthcoming before April, between January and April, or after April?
It's probably before, but again, I would have to. This would likely be a case-by-case basis.
Very, very speculative. I understand. Okay,
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions?
Corin, did you want to show your last slide?
Sure.
Okay. Let me just do that for you real quick. You can close out.
All right.
Since you worked so hard on it.
I did. I worked very hard on this PowerPoint. I hope everyone enjoyed it this year. Do I have control again?
You waiting for your approval?
Okay. Accept.
There you go.
All right. So here we are. And okay, so again, these are our finalizing the application deadlines. I will be emailing out this PowerPoint presentation as a cheat sheet for all of our good participants of tonight. And thank you for your participation. Take note of the phone number, 201-459-2070. Feel free to call my office. Again, Joe Wax and I will be working on this grant as a duo this year. So please feel free to reach out if ever you have a question about any of the questions within the application or eligibility and so on. And good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corin.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.